The girls on Lexington had it the worst. Hated maroon skirts the color of dried blood, navy blazers complete with gaudy emblem, goldenrod blouses with Peter Pan collars, and knee socks. Actually, knee socks weren't so bad. Knee socks served their purpose in the winter, keeping sturdy calves warm. The girls on the East End wore gray or navy skirts, plain and not pleated, with a white blouse, sweater optional. Multiple skirts were another way to go. We had our choice of navy, gray, maroon, and an unpleated light blue seersucker meant only for the spring. The choices allowed us to pretend we weren't really wearing a uniform. We hoped merely to be thought eccentric. Girls with fetishes for skirts with panels, but we fooled no one. Our clothing, our walk, our talk, our avid interest in grooming and normal people's clothing, and daily preoccupation with what we would wear on upcoming field trips when allowed to be out of uniform, filled our time and talk. We had a special way of standing that was part lean, part slouch, as if posture was too much of a bother to consider. Nameless, faceless on a school trip, we stood out. Solid colored blouses, pleated skirts, knee socks, loafers, bluchers, or oxfords. Private schoolgirls. Not to be confused with Catholic schoolgirls or Reformed schoolgirls. How many times did the kids in my neighborhood look at me with condescending pity? Not to be confused with the girls from the Facts of Life. They were boarders. No matter how many times I tried to explain this, the kids in my neighborhood persisted in calling me Tootie. We attended a second-tier all-girls school. We weren't as illustrious as private schools on the Upper East Side, yet not as seedy as the ones in Midtown. We clung to our small but unique differences. For example, having our choices of uniforms made us the envy of other all-girls schools. Girls were sure to take it out on us during soccer games. Secondly, there was our partnership with a nearby all-boys school, our brother's school, 2 blocks away, which allowed us to have kissing partners whenever we put on a play. At school, there were the WASPs and the JAPs, and me. Girls with last names for first names: Riley, Taylor, Haley, Morgan, Hayden. Girls whose names are meant for a boy or girl, depending. I'd never told anyone this, but I always felt naked in my pleated skirt, vulnerable. There was a trick to rolling the skirt that would take several inches off, a way of rolling tightly and minutely that would allow one to hide the extra material beneath a fold of the shirt if one tucked one shirt in properly, then pulled out just enough material to camouflage the extra skirt, only I didn't know it. I'd seen it numerous times, jealously watching girls enter the bathroom with skirts that covered their knees and walk back out with skirts that skimmed their thighs, but I still couldn't get it. The lines of my pleat were never quite right, always drooping in the front, making me look slightly off-kilter. It was lunchtime, and I was in the school's bathroom with my stomach bared in the mirror, trying to roll my skirt when Taylor and Ashley entered and headed for the stalls, deep in conversation. Neither one of them noticed me. Well, I wouldn't go with a guy from Buckley, that's for sure. I might not get to go at all. We're supposed to go to the Hamptons with my dad. He really has his heart set on it. And how am I supposed to get out of it? I don't know. I so need a new pair of jeans. Do you want to go to the Gap today after we get out of chorus? Yeah. Hey, did you hear Heather's parents let Chase go to Cabo San Lucas with her for spring break? No. They even paid his way. So caught up in eavesdropping on their conversation, I didn't hear the squeal of the bathroom door the second time it opened. Heather walked in, alone, and went straight to the mirror. She frowned slightly when she heard herself being discussed. Then she went into a stall near theirs. Who said that? Heather, that's who. I heard she broke up with him. For the coxswain? That's like way over. What happened? He dumped her for a girl from Chapin. 2 toilets flushed simultaneously. By the time Taylor and Ashley emerged, I had whipped out my Carmex and pretended to be carefully moisturizing, all thoughts of fixing my skirt gone. They washed their hands and walked out without looking at me. Once they left, Heather came out of her stall. Moments like these were common. They happened several times during the day. Self-reflective moments where girls met in between classes, gathering in bathrooms and on stairways to consider the grave issues of the times and their place in the world. Usually, the person being discussed wasn't present. Heather was still standing there. Her eyes met mine in the mirror. It's not true, you know. What? I never went out with that guy. Never even kissed him. He was a total turd. I shrugged. Okay. Do you know, she scrutinized me. You're in my class. I nodded. Yeah. Do you know about the party on West 91st this Friday? At Trinity? Are you going? I pretended to give the question some thought. The parties were hosted by co-ed private day schools who issued invitations to certain schools who then issued memberships to certain students. She knew I couldn't go. The memberships were a subtle way of excluding the undesirables. The membership list went out in 6th grade. The scholarship girls who came in through the enrichment programs started in 7th grade. There was no way ever to be included on the list. Unless someone sponsored me, which no one ever did. I had no plans to go to the party this Friday, or any other Friday, and she knew it. I wasn't planning on it, I said. Oh, do you know how to do that new dance they're doing, she asked me. You know, the one that goes like this? Heather's gyrations resembled nothing I could identify. No. I can't say that I know that one, I said. Sorry. Maybe I'm doing it wrong, she said. Maybe. It's called running something. The Running Man? That's it. She touched my arm. Do you know it? Sure. Can you show me? I looked around. Here? In the bathroom? Yeah. Heather smiled at me, warm and eager. I really didn't want to. I wasn't a very good dancer, and I didn't like to perform. At home, I would only sing in the shower, and I danced at house parties only when the lights were very low. But I danced for her. Awkward at first since there was no music, but she didn't seem to notice or mind. Once I started dancing, her eyes never met mine. They were riveted instead to my legs and feet. I had a feeling she wanted to take notes. That looks so hard, she said. It's not, I huffed. I danced harder, wanting to show off. I was silently repeating the words of a popular song in my head to give myself a beat. I danced harder as I tried to incorporate moves I'd seen on Video Music Box, getting ahead of myself and quickly losing the beat. A video diva I had never been, watching videos only on Saturdays when my mother was out. I was losing my rhythm and running out of breath when she finally said, "Wow, you're good. Really, really good." I stopped and took a deep breath. I smiled. Thanks. That evening, our phone rang, something it hardly ever did. My mother eyed the phone suspiciously, letting it ring 3 times before picking it up. "Hello," she answered, warily, frowning at the unseen offender who'd interrupted her silence. "Yes, hold on." She held the phone out to me. "It's for you." I ignored the question in her voice and grabbed it. "Hi, it's me." "Hi, it's Heather," she said as if I wouldn't know her voice. "Hey, who is it?" my mother mouthed silently. "Heather," I mouthed back, "from school." It had been my mother's idea to put me in the enrichment program that had given me a scholarship for the all-girls school, a decision she'd come to regret in the face of my loneliness and unpopularity. Now she hovered and tried to listen in, filled with hope. Heather's excitement came through, giddy and loud. "You're coming! You are so coming!" she shrieked into my ear. "What are you talking about?" "The party this Friday. Did you forget?" "No, I remember." "Well, I got you in. I sponsored you," she said. There was a pause in her voice as if she was waiting for something. "Thanks," I said. "You don't sound excited." "I am." "You are going to go, right?" I didn't answer. I was taking my time to think about it. Although she'd sponsored me, there was still the question of clothing. I had nothing suitable to wear. The dance would also end late, and I didn't think my mother would want me riding home from Manhattan to Brooklyn that late at night by myself. "Well, Nadira is going," Heather said as if it made a difference. "Nadira is the other black girl in our class. She'd been at school since kindergarten, and while I'd come in 7th grade on a scholarship, although there were a number of affluent black and Asian girls in my school who'd been attending since kindergarten, I was not one of them, and we claimed no kinship with one another. If I closed my eyes and listened to them speak, I wouldn't know they weren't white. Though Nadira and I belonged to the same race, she had more in common with the white girls. She and they lived in the same neighborhoods, had the same friends, values, and ideals. They listened to Z100 and sang classical in the choir. Like the white girls, she could not dance. I could neither, but no one knew that. They all took it for granted that I could. I'd like to, but I don't think my mom will let me because it ends so late. Tell her that's no problem. I wanted you to stay over. I'm having a little get-together at my house after the dance, you know, and after the party. Just a couple of girls, a sleepover. Taylor, Maya, Ashley, and maybe some others. Ask your mother if it's okay. I held the receiver to my chest. Mom, Heather wants to know if it's okay if I sleep over her house this Friday. Heather lived in the penthouse on 95th and Park. Of course it was okay. Heather invited me to sit with her at lunch the next day. 4 girls smiled at me as I sat down and continued on with their discussions. I have this bodysuit I'm going to wear. I'm going to wear it with my white jeans, Maya said. The other girls nodded their approval. You should wear your hair half up and half down, Heather told her. I don't have anything to wear. I'm going to need something new, Taylor said. Let's go to the Gap after class today and find something, Ashley suggested. They were all wearing fleeced pullovers in different colors from LL Bean and Patagonia over their collared blouses and heather gray leggings beneath their pleated skirts. None of them had on socks. Their feet were bare in their loafers, docksiders, and bluchers. I excused myself to go to the bathroom. There, I peeled off my socks. Ashley followed behind me. When I stood up, socks in hand, she said, do you think you could show me the dance you showed Heather? The next day, I was back in the bathroom, showing 5 new girls. For the next 2 days, Heather brought girls to me, and we took them into the bathroom to teach them the steps. For the next 2 days, I danced and danced on cold white tiles, while white girls leaned against sinks and stall doors and watched. The dancing, I thought, brought me respect and admiration. Through it, I was redeeming myself in their eyes. I was, after all these years, good for something. The day before the dance, Heather caught me on my way out to the train station. I've been meaning to tell you this about the party on Friday. Hands jammed into her jacket pockets, she stood on one foot, the other snaked around her calf, rubbing the back of her leg with the toe of her shoe. My stomach tightened. Now she'd tell me it had all been a joke. They'd been teasing me, making me feel as though I fit in was a prank some upper-class woman had put them up to. What about? Well, I know I told you there were just going to be girls at the party, but I wanted to make sure you'd come. There are going to be a few guys there too. Don't worry, they're cool. They're guys I know from St. Bernard's and Allen Stevenson, Buckley, and Collegiate. But they're going to sleep in the den. We'll meet them at the party and they'll come back with us. Is that cool? Yeah, I said, relieved that her groundbreaking news had nothing to do with me. Good. Look, the girls and I chipped in on this. We were wondering if you could score us some weed. We want to have some real fun. I hope this is enough, Heather said, pressing crinkly bills into my hand. She patted my arm and stepped off the curb to hail a cab to take her home. I clutched the money in my hand, walked down Lexington to catch the 4 train, and rode home. When I got home that night, I searched in my mother's sewing basket until I found her seam ripper. I removed the deadly thing and carefully pulled off the stitches surrounding the little horse on the back pocket of my jeans. I changed into these jeans a trial run for the real test tomorrow. I was surprised to see myself in regular clothes. I changed shirts and threw on a light jacket. I counted out the money Heather had given me and folded it neatly and slipped it into my pocket. Where are you going? My mother asked when she saw me at the door. Out! She didn't ask any further questions for further explanation. Something had changed between us ever since the phone call. My blossoming friendships pleased her. My mother was as happy as if the invitation had been extended to her. Just yesterday, she put her hand on my shoulder while I was washing dishes. I just want you to be happy, she'd said, her guilt now assuaged. There was a store 2 blocks away that I knew was just a front. I'd gone in once to buy snacks, and everything they sold was expired, stale. I pushed through the door, walked in. 1 teenager hunched over an arcade game, and 2 lounged against the corners of the wall. 25-cent bags of popcorn, potato chips, and cheese curls. 10-cent lollipops and 5-cent peanut chews and super bubbles were behind a counter covered in plexiglass. I walked up to the counter. Can I buy some weed here? I could feel everyone look at me. The man behind the counter squinted. He cleared his throat. He took a long time before he spoke. We got soda and chips. What you see, that's what we got. But I want to buy some weed, I said. I have money. We sell candy, soda, and chips, he said. You want to buy some candy? I didn't know what else to do. I was frustrated, wanting to argue. He knew it was a weed spot. I knew it was a weed spot. Was there there some magic word I needed to say, some secret code that would let him know I meant business? I pulled out my money and held it up to the plexiglass. Open sesame? I said. He shook his head. I walked out. A minute later, I felt somebody behind me. I turned. I recognized him from the store. He'd been playing Pac-Man. What was you doing in there? You crazy or something? I walked faster. Leave me alone. That was real stupid. What, you're not from around here? I live here, I told him. He didn't believe me. Where? Miller and Pitkin. I live on that block and I've never seen you. Well, I go to school, I said. His lips curled up then. They were full, made brown from smoking. His eyes were large, round, and sleepy. He was older. Beautiful. I felt my mistake. I didn't mean it like that. He walked by my side. So why you want to buy weed? Just to try it, I said, for fun. You ever smoke a blunt before? I didn't want a blunt, I wanted a joint. He looked at me like I was stupid. I was going to buy it for my friends, I said. They asked me to get it for a party. So you still want it? $5 for a nickel bag, right? You've been watching too much TV. He refused to give it to me out on the street. Let's take a walk. He walked past my block and past the intermediate school to the park. He stopped when we got to the swings. He sat down on one and backpedaled with his feet. Come here. I stood between his legs. We were eye to eye. What's your name? He asked. You don't need to know. He nodded. So you like white boys? No, I said. Black eyes? Nope. Girls? He asked, his voice filled with disbelief and excitement. I don't like anybody, I said. He pulled me toward him and kissed me. The faint, sweet scent of smoke clung to his chin, and I knew that I would smell of him. I had a feeling as if I were waiting in the subway for my train just before it pulls in, and it was rushing down the track, blowing its dirty, hot wind underneath my skirt, caressing the bare skin between pleats and socks. I tried to pull away, but felt his hands on me cupping my butt. Felt him slip the bag of weed into my back pocket. He turned me away from him, adjusting me so that I sat on his front thighs. Pretending to put his arms around me, he slipped his hands into my front pockets, seeking until he found my folded cash. Slick, I thought. Smooth. To anyone passing by, we looked like two fools making out in the park. The party, because I had longed for it, was a disappointment. The DJ could not mix one song into another. The lights never got very low. We stood in a paper gymnasium in jeans, stretchy shirts, and too many coats of mascara. Girls from different schools divided themselves accordingly, even without their uniforms. I could pick out the girls from Brearley, Chapin, and Spence. The boys Heather knew didn't show up until the end of the party. The only people I really knew were Heather, Taylor, Maya, and Ashley, and every time I saw them, they were all dancing, proudly showing off the moves I'd taught them. I ran into Nadira once that night when we were both getting sodas, but she didn't speak to me. I held up the wall all night. No one asked me to dance. I held my plastic cup of soda and thought of my mother at home, sleeping blissfully, happy and proud. I only had one chance to talk to Heather at the dance. She came over to where I stood on the wall, her face flushed from dancing. Did I do okay? She asked me. You look good, I said. How do you like it? I shrugged. It's okay. Aren't you dancing? Nobody asked me. They probably don't want you to embarrass them, Heather said. I didn't bother to tell her that the dance I'd shown her was the only one I knew. Don't worry, she said, the real party starts when you get to my house. At Heather's house, we had carte blanche. Her parents were asleep. Heather brought out the alcohol, I pulled out the small bag of weed, and we wasted no time getting drunk and high. A boy Heather had introduced as Gabe wanted to play a version of Spin the Bottle. I was the first victim. Gabe and I looked at each other across the thin neck of the bottle, unsure. He's never made it with a black girl before, Taylor said. So, go in the closet with him, Heather suggested. Show him how it's done. She clapped me on the arm and gave me a push. Gabe held out his hand and I got up, steadily taking it. I wasn't sure that I wanted to go, but I went. We sat in the deep closet. The hems of Heather's jackets grazed the tops of our heads. I decided I wouldn't do it. Gabe slid a finger up my arm and I shivered, and backing away, said, wow, this closet is really big, huh? It's cool, he said. We don't have to, you know. I mean, unless you want. He looked hopeful, even in the dark. I can't, I said. Maybe if you touch it. He took my hand and rubbed it against his denim crotch, his hand over mine. I'm going to be sick, I said. Whoa, wait a minute, he said, okay. Sick, I said. He leaned back, but in a minute he asked, can I touch your breasts? I don't think so. Just once? He reached under my shirt. My bra was lace, one of my mother's cast off. My underwear did not match, but I knew he would never know that. Hey, he said, feeling the lace cups of my bra. Whoa, hey. Whoa, hey, I said, mocking him, feeling suddenly warm. His hand closed over my breast and squeezed. It made me think of the old-fashioned cars in the Bugs Bunny cartoon. Beep, beep, I said, then burst out laughing. He laughed too, and then the two of us couldn't stop laughing. We fell against each other laughing. And then he pulled me through the jackets and across his lap, pushing his tongue into my mouth, banging his teeth against mine, kissing me wet and sloppy. I tasted the strong flavor of weed on his tongue and thought of the boy who'd sold it to me. How beautiful he'd been. How though we lived just a few blocks apart, we were strangers. Like the boy pressing himself against me, we were from two different worlds. They were both from the real world, their own distinct ones, but I was somewhere in limbo, set apart. I didn't know how to let them in. I knew Gabe's hands were tugging my shirt down, that in a minute they'd be working the latch on my bra. But I didn't stop him. In the dark of Heather's closet, I tried to see what Gabe saw. I pictured an image of myself that was Heather's body and face, only it was black, and it was me. I saw how much of me would change. I saw the girl I would become. And I decided to go ahead and miss myself right now, knowing that the girl I would become wouldn't know how to appreciate me at all.